call the regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen to order at 7:30. The prayer will be offered by City Clerk Patricia Pietzu. Alderman O'Brien will lead us in the pledge to the flag.
Mighty God, we have the high honor and serious duty to manage the affairs of our beloved city. Fill us, O God, with a spirit of unity and understanding, which enables us to face our multiple problems with a serene mind, with justice and charity for all, so that any and all decisions made by us will always be for the betterment and greater happiness of all our fellow citizens. So help us God. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Wilshire. Here. Alderman Gidge.
Here.
Alderman Harriet Gathright.
Present.
Alderman Dowd.
Present.
Alderman Clee.
Here.
Alderman Laws.
Here.
Alderman Lopez.
Here.
Alderman Karen.
Here.
Alderwoman Kelly.
Here.
Alderman Jettie.
Here.
Alderwoman Malizi Gola.
Present.
Alderman Tenza.
Present.
Alderman Schmidt.
Here.
Alderman O'Brien.
Present.
Alderman McCarthy.
Present.
We have 15 members present.
Also present, the Corporation Counsel Stephen A. Bolton and His Honor Mayor Jim Donches. Does the mayor wish to address the board?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Well, on tonight's agenda, we have the Performing Arts Center bond, which we've been considering for quite a long time, which has now been considered and approved by, excuse me, the voters of Nashua. But I think in view of some of the arguments or concerns that have been raised recently, I wanted to address the issue, even though many of you have agreed to co-sponsor it. I think the underlying purpose here is to improve Nashua's economy, strengthen our downtown, and improve the quality of life for Nashuans. The concerns that I've heard recently have to do with the idea that if we raise money for a performing arts center, that will result in fewer contributions being made to the nonprofit sector, to the many angel organizations we have that do good work on behalf of many of the people in Nashua who need help. Well, I think that this argument, in my mind, does not, although it's a concern, I do not believe that it has validity, because I am confident and believe in the power of Nashua's potential. I don't see this as a zero-sum game. It's not if I win, you lose, or vice versa issue, because a reinvigorated downtown, including in our case new housing options, a rejuvenation of Nashua's riverfront, a performing arts center, additional stores and restaurants, a rejuvenated downtown is good for all Nashuans because it will expand our tax base, it will help pay for infrastructure, and it will help pay for schools, fire and police protection, and other services that benefit all Nashuans in all neighborhoods. Cities all over the country are seeking to revitalize their downtowns, and if we think of New England, I mean, virtually all of them, but Providence, Fall River, New Bedford, Worcester, New Haven, Manchester, Concord, New Hampshire, Portland, Maine, Burlington, Vermont. And all are doing this because there are a number of purposes, but of course downtowns are the heart of a community, a symbol of a city, and a barometer of how well the city is doing. If you think about cities that you've been to that have a very active downtown and compare those with communities you've been to where, you know, most of the storefronts are vacant, you have a totally different impression, and it reflects the well-being of the community. The community with an active downtown is doing well, and that's the perception of any business or person from the outside who might consider locating there. But the downtown with all vacant stores is perceived to have given up. And we, of course, are in the former category. We have an active downtown, but we want to build on that. because a rejuvenated downtown, as I said, is good for all. Our downtown central business district consists of about a quarter mile of land. And what I mean by the downtown in this case is Main Street down to Hollis Street, a couple of blocks on either side, and the Mill Yards, including BAE and Clock Tower and the like. This area generates $6 million in property taxes for the city of Nashua, yet requires very few services. Almost no school children, a very small number of school children are in this area. We provide police protection and fire, but we make additional money off the parking meters, where $700,000 plus comes into the city coffers. So if we can expand the downtown tax base, if we could expand the value of property, if we can boost economic activity, if we can add business downtown, and therefore add 50 or 100% to the tax receipts, to the property tax base in downtown, we add millions of dollars to the receipts of the city, which help to subsidize services for the neighborhoods that we all represent. We know that we have a number of great institutions downtown: Riverwalk, Surf, Sconsis, Martha's, Camaraderie, PRG, Jaja Bells, and many, many other organizations and stores downtown, just to mention a few. These stores are good for everyone, even for people who never go there, because they help to build the economy of the city and help to add and support the downtown tax base. So I believe that we should have confidence and believe in the power of Nashua's potential, so that we can move forward and raise all boats and help all Nashuans. And therefore, I ask you to continue to support the Performing Arts Center and help us move forward with a successful project. A second argument that I've heard is that we now, at the last minute, should amend the resolution. We've put this before the voters. The voters voted on the version that is before you. If we were to say, for example, that we have to have cash in the bank, I mean, there are just many ways that money can be raised, which we will proceed to do. What if Amazon said they would give us $1 million a year for 4 years? That's not good enough. So we just don't, and that's an example just to make the point, that we don't know the form in which the money can come in there for sure now. There are many ways that we could raise funds towards this project, and I think we should just vote on the version of the resolution that we put to the voters and which they approved. On another subject, Mr. Chair, I'm sure you all saw the result of the lawsuit today. As a result of the lawsuit filed by Mr. T-Boom, the cap was invalidated by the court, so as of now and into the future, there is no operative cap in the city unless there's an appeal or an successful appeal. But that doesn't mean that we will wildly spend money or change our fiscally responsible ways in any respect. The budget I will give to you will be fiscally responsible. We will continue to watch our tax dollars carefully, with or without a cap. The tax rate is still the bottom line, and we will proceed with the same kind of responsibility that we have in the past, looking to the tax rate and the taxes that the people in Nashua can afford. And finally, Mr. Chair, there is a breakfast tomorrow, a Safe Stations breakfast benefiting the Safe Stations program in Harbor Homes at the Marriott, starting at 7 o'clock. Some of you may have tickets. We may have some extras, and tickets may be available at the door, but I would encourage anybody who is available to attend that breakfast. And with that, Mr. Chair, I will conclude.
Any responses to the remarks of the mayor? Recognition period.
There are none.
Reading of the minutes of previous meeting and public hearing. Alderwoman Wilshire.
I move that the minutes of the Board of Aldermen meeting of January 23rd, 2018, and the public hearing conducted by the Budget Review Committee on January 22nd, 2018, be accepted, placed on file, and the reading suspended.
Motion is that the minutes of the Board of Aldermen meeting of January 23rd, 2018, and those of the public hearing conducted by the Budget Review Committee on January 22nd, 2018, be accepted, placed on file, and the readings be suspended. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Communications, Alderwoman Melissa Golia.
Yes, I would move that all communications be read by title only.
Motion is that all communications be read by title only. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries.
Communication from Tim Cummings, Director of Economic Development, relative to the overview of the TIF program relative to Ordinance 18-006.
Alderwoman Melissa Golia.
Yes, I move to accept, place on file, and refer to the Planning and Economic Development Committee and the Budget Review Committee.
Motion is to accept, place on file, and refer to the Planning and Economic Development Committee and the Budget Review Committee. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries. Period for public comment relative to items expected to be acted upon this evening. Kathy Allard. Come on up. Can you get near the microphone? Give your name and address first, please.
In the confusion with the name change of my street, I see there's been a resolution that my neighbor and I are very satisfied with, and coming here gave me a great appreciation of what everyone does, the time you take to look at the different problems from all angles. I really appreciate that. I've never been to a meeting before the past 6 months. And like I said, I greatly appreciate everything that you do. And I just wanted to say, when they start changing all the numbers, say like up on French Hill, resign. It's going to be tough. Thank you all.
Mary Lou Blaisdell.
Good evening, Mary Lou Blaisdell. I live at 32 Webster Street in Nashua. I'm here in support, as you all probably very well know, of the Performing Arts Center. As a citizen and a business owner downtown, I've been very much involved in this and think it will be a vital part of our city if we do move forward with it. In addition to my support, there are several other businesses that couldn't be here tonight but did ask me to let you know of their support. First of all, the Chamber of Commerce. Tracy Hatch is out of town, but she called me today and asked me to let you once again know that the Chamber and their members fully support this endeavor. Snap It's Vintage, My Optic, Precision Body Art, Stella Blue, Daryl's Music, City Room Cafe, Nashua Coins and Collectibles, Martha's Exchange, Fresh, Face Cabinetry. You've also heard from several business owners over the course of the discussion on this. Michael Buckley from MT's Dining Group, Jim from Stella Blue, Billy Focus from Martha's Exchange. There's a huge amount of support downtown. We see what the potential is for the economic development of our downtown. We're all very vested and interested in it, and we hope and encourage that you will pass and support this evening. Thank you.
Tyler Correa.
Hi, Tyler Govea, 12 Pine Brook Road. Good evening, everybody. I'm here representing myself and a few concerned citizens in the city who asked me to come out tonight and talk. As a 19-year-old college student, I'm all for the Performing Arts Center and the idea of having one. But with that being said, I think we need to be responsible with what we're doing here. And I'm speaking out against it tonight because of the $15.5 million bond for the Performing Arts Center that has 500 to 700 seats in it. I feel there will be better opportunities down the road that the city can capitalize on. Yes, the 102 Main Street location might be ideal, but for the price, it just seems a little bit too expensive. The math breaks down to about $31,000 a seat if you break it down to a 500-seat theater, and $22,100 if you break it to a 700-seat theater. These figures represent the cost per seat just as a principal and not the interest which will accumulate on the life of the bond. We have to have spending priorities here in Nashua. We have roads that need to be fixed with potholes and divots. We've all heard the complaints about it. And then we have schools that are going to need to be fixed. Mount Pleasant and Elm Street, we know, need to be brought up to code. The most recent estimate of the cost of the work was around $50 million for both schools. It seems at this time we just need to look at a better way to invest our taxpayers' money in both the public education and safety versus the nice things to have, but we don't need them, like the Performing Arts Center. Look at the Palace Theater in Manchester. It's a beautiful venue with a seating capacity of 880. When first built in 1914, it was thriving. And I have no doubt it will be thriving if we build it. But that doesn't mean it will stay thriving. You look at the history of the Palace Theater, by 1920, it started to lose public favor. And then by 1960, it wasn't in use at all. It took until about midway through the 1970s when private developers put $500,000 into renovations, which now equates out to about $2.5 million when you take into event inflation. So it took them like $2.5 million to bring it back up. And that's significantly less than the $15.5 million proposed in this bond. In fact, that's 6 times less. Yeah, we might spend $15.5 million now, but it will definitely need more. It definitely will need more, and we will have to bond more to keep it renovated and keep this Performing Arts Center functional. We know that in politics there's backroom deals, and this one is no different. In a conversation I had with somebody who's very respected in the community, a few people in the community, there was a backroom deal between Mayor Donchis and John Kutas where a $2 million where the $2 million deal would go through, but in that deal, there was a expected $500,000 donation in place to the Art Endowment Fund, which needs to collect $4 million before the $15.5 million bond was released. Excuse me. So we're not just paying 201 Main Street for $2 million. We are buying it for $1.5 and then using the remaining $500,000 of taxpayer money to subsidize that $4 million Art Endowment Fund needed to help run the Performing Arts Center because it's just not self-sustaining. The use of these funds is at least inconsiderate, in most, an unethical application of taxpayer dollars used in the manner hidden from the public and possibly some members of the Board of Aldermen. It is my understanding that a right-to-know request has been filed with the mayor's office over this very matter, so I don't think we know everything that's happening with this project. In the 2017 municipal election referendum question 2, I'm sure we're all familiar with it, the $15.5 million bond for the Performing Arts Center was voted upon. 5 of the 9 wards voted against the $15.5 million bond. So tonight I call upon those ward aldermen, Ward 1 Alderman Jane Schmidt, Ward 5 Alderman Jetty, Ward 6 Alderman Gidge, Ward 7 Alderman Karen, and my personal ward alderman, Ward 9 Alderman Gathright. To those that consisted the vote to them to be the voice of the aldermanic chamber and represent the wants and needs. Vote no, not because you want to, but because the citizens want you to. And that's been seen through this vote. When you look at the aldermen at large, 55.5% of wards said they did not want to bond the $15.5 million for the Performing Arts Center. That doesn't mean they don't want it. That just means this is not the right time or the right deal. Just remember who you are all working for, the people of Nashua. And at the end of the day, we all want what is best for everybody in Nashua. So I please ask tonight that we put personal interest and party politics aside and do what's best for the city. Thank you.
Rich Lannon.
Good evening, Rich Lannon. Home address 11 McGrath Road in Pelham. I own a couple of mixed-use buildings downtown. I know some of you have heard me talk in the past many times, so I'll try not to bore you, even though I know there's a lot of new members. First of all, I think Mayor Donch just said it perfectly about the economic benefit. In regards like the last gentleman about the taxpayer dollars, I think it's really clear from all the testimony in the past, from all the absolute fact that has come through from all over the state, that obviously Director Cummings have talked over and over again. I've talked about those numbers at committee meetings and so forth. The economic benefit back to the city, yes, it's going to cost the taxpayers some money, but the economic benefit back that, again, I won't believe it, you know, Mayor Donch just talked for a few minutes about it tonight, is huge. I mean, it's, you know, millions and millions of dollars that are coming back to economic benefit back to the cities like Portsmouth, Manchester, Rochester, and the Monadnock region. Portsmouth may be a little different animal because where it is and tourism, but the others, they know better than Nashua. The economic benefit, not just to the downtown, but to the city of Nashua, again, as Mayor Donch just said, is going to far exceed. And this is not just speculation and numbers out of people's, you know, back pocket. These are facts that have been shown from state and national agencies that have shown what the economic benefit back to everybody in Nashua. Not just the downtown, which obviously some of the restaurants, bars, and shops will get a very direct benefit, but this is the benefit for the taxpayers in Nashua. And, so I think, this is the best time, and this has been studied for years, and obviously over the last 4 to 5 years, I'm on the Downtown Improvement Committee, and we've been talking about it at our committee level for quite a while. We were all sad when, obviously, Alex Shue left town. There's not a person in the city or in this room that wanted him to leave downtown. No doubt about that. However, he did, and we, I guess, are lucky that we have the ideal property, because if that property wasn't available, it would mean great that John Koutz's is still downtown, but it would be a second, third, or fourth choice, if at all, of where a performing arts center could be. This is sitting here and is been proven by a lot of people because of the location in the heart of downtown, with the vast amount of parking available, even though some people keep on asking, there's no parking there. There's 2 parking garages within a short walk, so there's plenty of parking. There probably couldn't be if you just picked a spot and every building downtown was vacant of where this performing arts center should be. This is good, if not the best location. This is a no-brainer, in my opinion, and a lot of people that have looked at this. And this is not, again, just downtown businesses. The study that was done by Duncan Webb, and I was on that committee that selected him for a couple of reasons, because of his resume and because he has no stake in this whatsoever. He talked about and I can't remember the percentage, but it was a fairly good percentage, and named cities all over this country that after spending tens of thousands of dollars for a study, he came back and said, sorry guys, I'm the bearer of the bad news. It doesn't make sense for your city. Quite the opposite here. Sure, they downsized the size of the building, is about all he did, the size, how many seats, but he has no stake whatsoever if this building gets built. And he talked to not just downtown people, he talked to people all over the city about what they want, what the city needs, and I think this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that Nashua needs and has been waiting for, and it'd be a shame if we lose it. So I urge everybody to please think about that and vote in favor tonight. Thank you.
Dick Iannacone.
Dick Iannacone, 35 Sport Terrace. I feel like Tom Brady in the last 25 seconds of the game trying to win a game. And everyone pretty well has their mind made up. There's some good points brought up tonight. One of the things that we should look at A little history. We are not negative on the Performing Arts Center. Our group has been active with the city since we came to town in 1979. We have probably donated and had raised more than $300,000 plus to give to the performing arts. Last year alone, we probably had another $35,000 to the endowment fund for the Symphony of New Hampshire. So we don't come here. We have been part of the group trying for years to get a performing arts center here, quite frankly. What's difficult about this, though, is that the procedure we're using to raise this $15.5 million, correct me if I'm wrong, but I called again today, and this is not the last minute. It's been trying to get an answer to a few questions, which today I think I got an answer to. You're going to vote tonight to authorize a $15.5 million bond. But it's also contingent upon raising $4 million. I disagree with the mayor. If Amazon promised us $1 million for 4 years, I still will not accept it. The money should be in the bank. We should not come back in 2 years to the people of Nashua and say, you know what, we think we have the money, let's proceed. And if I understand it correctly, we take the bond, we have 2 years for the bond. We buy the building, but the renovations don't start until the money is collected. Is that correct? The $4 million? However, today I was told that the mayor can come back and say within a year or whatever and say, you know what, we have the funds, but the funds don't have to be in the bank. I think that's wrong to the people of Nashua. I know today we took off the cap. I'm a big believer that good fences make good neighbors. It's so easy to be able to sit down and make some choices without having some parameters to go by, to have the discipline. So here we're going to raise the money. We're going to have the bond, 2 years, up to 2 years to do the bond. The building sits dormant for 2 years. You mothball it. That's 2020. And then if we have the $4 million at that point, then we can go ahead and start the renovations on the building. This is quite a long spell before we get to have the downtown improvements we're talking about. And by the way, I also thought and I was in error, obviously, but my code was 4 at 6 1/4. The information that's been reported in the paper a few times is that the $1 million that the performing arts would have this $4 million raised to pay a quarter of the revenues to support the ongoing building. That was incorrect. Apparently, it's $150,000, and then each year, performing arts have to raise $100,000 to pay those expenses. If any of you have been to the Symphony of New Hampshire, and oh, by the way, Nancy, Eric, Mark, these 3 people kept together the jewel of Nashua in the performing arts. Originally known as Nashua Symphony, and we changed it to Symphony of New Hampshire. There was a period of time where we negotiated with New Hampshire Symphony to combine the 2 groups together because they were in trouble. We met many, many days with Manchester and Nashua, but they didn't want to do a deal with us. But because of the group we had, Nancy, Eric, Mark now, we prevailed. The so-called Symphony for New Hampshire, the state, which came out of Manchester, they're out. They're gone. Nashua survived because of the discipline they kept in running that organization. It's not that easy. If you go to the symphony, check the magazine and look at it. And look at the section that says endowments. Look and see when the last money was raised for the endowments for the symphony. We're all strong on that. Where have we been for the last number of years? It's a lot more difficult. I differ with you, Mayor, about raising the money. We may have a lot of people interested in this thing. But you know what? Talk is cheap. The money has to be there. Yes, I do advise tonight, if you're going to make this motion tonight, make it contingent that that money's going to be there in the bank to do it. And why go 2 years? If everyone's serious about this, we have all the support from all these people, let's get it going. Why not say 1 year with the $4 million? If everyone thinks they could raise it, everyone wants this thing to happen. 4,500 entities, business, people, write a check for $1,000. You got $4.5 million. It's done. Go for it. I'll be the first person to write a check for $1,000. We'll give it to you right away. If you get it formed, have a charitable function so people can take a deduction for it. Why prolong this thing? If you really believe in it, make the motion tonight. Don't be afraid to do that. Say the bond, make it contingent, the money's in the bank, make it for 1 year. This is something that is needed for Nashua, yes. I'm not sure it's the right place. I'm not sure it's the right avenue, but everyone else seems to think it is. Well, let's everyone get up and write the check to do it. Make that motion tonight to make it dependent, 1 year. Make sure it's in the bank, and make sure that the mayor cannot say, hey, it's okay, Amazon's promised to pay us the money. It should be in the bank. Thank you very much.
Philip Sconsis.
Philip Sconsis, 14 Ashland Street here in Nashua. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to the new members of the board. It's nice to see the fresh faces. Spoken a couple of times here, so it's nice to be back. This is a very exciting time for Nashua. There is a lot of enthusiasm about this Performing Arts Center. I'm shocked to hear the young man, the 19-year-old man that spoke earlier, speak about a large group of negative people, because that's not the people that I'm speaking to. I'm actually speaking to a lot of people that are very enthused by this and the promise what this will bring. I speak to parents who have children that hope that they will stick around after their college days because of things like this Performing Arts Center, et cetera. I also am surprised to hear about the people not so sure about Nashua stepping up with the money. There's been lots of discussion about what plans would be. I think it's a little of putting the cart before the horse. But I hope that tonight you can all find it in your hearts to vote for this Performing Arts Center that is going to make Nashua just that much better than it already is. I think with the development of the real estate, the redevelopment of the river, this last piece it's just that last missing piece that we've been talking about for a long time. I think back to all the master plans that we sat through and everybody that talked to us about what Nashua needs, and this was always on the list of what needed to be, one of the most highest priorities of what needed to be done. So I hope you can all find it something that you will vote for and see it be positive and help this city, not just help downtown, but help this whole city be the city it should be. Thank you.
Petitions.
Street renumbering petition, 25 New Searles Road and 27 New Searles Road.
Alderman O'Brien.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to make a motion to grant the petition in part with the stipulation that the Sheet B, Lot 1058, be assigned the street address of 25A New Searles Road, and that there be no address change to Sheet B, Lot 59.
Motion is to grant the petition in part with the stipulation that Sheet B, Lot 1058, be assigned the street address of 25A New Searles Road, and that there be no address change to Sheet B, Lot 59. Discussion. Alderman Jettie.
It's after hearing Ms. Allard speak, I feel it's difficult for me to talk about this, but at the meeting of the Infrastructure Committee, we talked about this, and originally the petition that was before us was to, well, maybe I ought to explain the situation. So back when this property was, when the subdivision was initially approved, this is out on New Searles Road, there were several lots approved, and they were assigned street addresses. And one of them was 25 New Searles Road, upon which there is a building, a house that has been constructed. There was another lot next to it that remained vacant, and then a lot next to that one upon which a house was built, and it was assigned the address of 29 New Searles Road, and then a house next to that was 31. So you've got 25, a vacant lot, and the vacant lot was assigned the address of 27. And then what is now Mrs. Allard's property was assigned the address of 29, and then 31. For some unknown reason, someone in Mrs. Allard's chain of title, someone who occupied that property before she did, started using the number 27 instead of the 29 that had been assigned to it. And when she bought the house, she continued using the address of 27. So a mistake was made. And so now you've got a house on 25, you've got a vacant lot next to it, you've got Mrs. Allard's property, she's using 27, and then you've got 31. So Mr. Philbrook, I think his name is, acquired this vacant lot and wants to build a house on it. It's an approved lot. It's part of a subdivision that goes back a number of years. And he can't get a building permit until he has an address. The city has an addressing committee, and it is dealing with the assignment of street address numbers. And they wrote a memo to the board and the committee saying that they strongly recommended that the era that was developed when whoever owned the property that Mrs. Allard now occupies, when they started using the wrong number, that mistake be rectified, and that it be given its original address of 29, the vacant lot get the address of 27, and 25 keeps its 25, and 31 keeps its 31. And the reason they strongly recommend this is that we are in the process, the whole country is trying to comply with guidelines set out by this E911 commission or committee in order to make it better and easier for our emergency people to locate properties in the case of an emergency. And part of their guidelines says that buildings should have whole numbers, not numbers with letters and not numbers with fractions, but whole numbers. And we did that back when this subdivision was first approved. We assigned this property that is now a vacant lot, we assigned it the number 27. Mrs. Allard's property was assigned the number of 29. A mistake was made, and her predecessor in title started using the wrong number. So we have a chance now to correct this mistake, put it back the way it was supposed to be, and comply with the E911 guidelines. Now, we are, the whole country is trying to become E911 compliant, and several locations in New Hampshire have already become so. We have not yet. It's a job that we are going to be tackling in the next few years. It's going to be a difficult job because Nashua is an old city, and Nashua for a number of years, landlords or property owners assigned address numbers to their properties on their own. For example, I was born here in Nashua at 7.5 Harvard Street. It was a duplex building. The owner of the building had number 7, and we had the apartment next door. We were 7.5. So I'm sure you can think of other properties where, I have a client who has a multifamily property, and they've got a combination of fractions and letters and stuff. And I had the sheriff try to serve a tenant, and the sheriff had trouble because of all, trouble finding the right door because of all of these difficulties. The E911 system is trying to remedy that confusion. So somewhere in the next few years, Nashua is going to be taking these multi-unit buildings with letters and fractions and reassigning numbers to them. For example, a building that is now 25, 25A, 25B, 25C would be changed, I think, to something like 25 apartment 1, apartment 2, apartment 3, or apartment A, B, and C. Something along those lines. So on this property, and I've spoken to some of the members of the addressing committee, including the fire marshal, Adam Puglia, and he feels very strongly that we should not assign this 25A. And he points out the problems of emergency personnel trying to locate a building. So, for example, if somebody has a heart attack, calls on the phone and says, "I'm having a heart attack, come to 25A, New Searles Road," the emergency people go out there, so they find building 25, and okay, where's 25A? Is it behind 25? Is it a side entrance to 25? And, oh, it's not this building at all, it's the building next door, that's 25A. Or they get called to 29 New Searles Road. And so they find 25, okay, so, 29 must be, the next 2 doors down. Or 27 should be the building next to 25. No, it's not the building next to 25, that's 25A. 27 is the next building down. So we've got an opportunity here, I think, to remedy a problem and to avoid confounding a problem, making the situation worse. And in a few years, as much inconvenience as Mrs. Allard feels that she's going to be put through if we reassign her address, somebody's going to buy her a building eventually, and the building's going to be built at 25A, someone's going to occupy that, and so you've got 2 more families that are going to have to deal with this reassignment. So, having said all of that, I'm not, I should have at the Infrastructure Committee meeting moved to table it to get this information, but I'm brand new. I wasn't quick enough to think about this. So, I think that I would like to move that this be re-referred to the committee so that we can hear from the fire marshal and we can hear from Sarah Marchant as to why they feel so strongly about why we shouldn't do what this amendment will do.
Motion is to re-refer to the Infrastructure Committee. Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you. Is that the motion to re-refer it?
Yes.
Okay. I would like to speak on that particular motion. What in essence here is this request came out upon a cusp. There's a couple information that Alderman Jettie did not really give you 100% information on. This came at a cusp upon the election. My good friend and colleague, Alderman Siegel, who was a Ward 9 alderman at that time, was not able to attend completely to his duties. But being the alderman at large and a member of Ward 9, I got pretty involved with it. And then in the interim, I became chairman of the Infrastructure Committee. Now, in speaking to the motion, the past history was we already heard from the fire marshal. We received a letter expressing his point of views. Now, when you weigh the balance on matters of law. And what was before us in the Infrastructure Committee was three matters. One is a state RSA, the second thing is a city NRO, and the third thing is a guide. Only two of them are law, and if not, you can ask corporate counsel for a ruling on this, but an RSA and NRO are law, which gives the authority to the Infrastructure Committee to make a decision on this particular item. The other thing that Alderman Jettie is talking about is an E911 guide. It's what guide means. It's a suggestion. Now, in the perfect world, it probably would be better if we had all the streets numbers properly laid out. But let's look at the other neighborhoods within the city. This is not the only thing. And I think as aldermen, those of us who've been around our particular wards know that this isn't the only, it ain't the Tigger, it's not the only one, okay, that's out there. So, and then you have concerns for the fire department. I think we hire some pretty smart people, particularly when we look and we say we have Satin and Satin Streets, Coburn Ave and Coburn Street, Russell Ave and Russell Street, Lovewell and Lovell, and my favorite, Williams Court, which is not near Williams Street at all, and all these streets are different. We have a professional department that is able to get to the particular address. And to defense of the committee's decision, we did something that is very rare in politics. We made Mrs. Allard happy, and we were able to make Mr. Philbrick happy by coming to this agreement and giving the number 25A. Will the fire department be able to distinguish that address? I think that they should. If those of you who know Searles Road, it's not a congested, it's laid out, single-family homes. It should be fairly simple. Is it perfect? I'm not saying that it is. In an ideal world, other parts of the city should be numbered in sequential, but that is not necessarily the case. And put the onus in this one particular incident, I think would create a hardship to a lady, by no fault of her own, purchased a property and was given and assumed that was the proper street number. So therefore, in speaking to the motion, I think the Infrastructure Committee has done their due diligence, has vetted. There was a disdaining vote, but the majority of the committee, and therefore I make the recommendation not to refer it back to the committee and to put it before the board to vote appropriately on this matter, which you do have complete by the RSAs and NRO, the complete authority to do so. Thank you.
Alderman Lopez.
I also plan to oppose returning it to committee because we had this discussion, for me, twice, because we discussed it in the previous infrastructure committee too. And a guide is a guide. Somebody in the United States has decided that the best way to do numbering is to use whole numbers only. And I don't know that they know Nashua Fire Department, and I don't know that we need to conclude that our firefighters can't notice a letter A when they're looking for an emergency. I've found them to be professional. I've worked with them probably way above average in emergency response calls in plenty of 25-1As, 22As, 22AC1s. They know where the things are in the city. They know their regions and their districts. And, ultimately, these are two houses on a road that's not an urban metropolis. So I don't think the fire department is going to be completely taxed by this. I do think the hardship would fall on, number one, the two neighbors, the developer and the woman living there. They're the most relevant to the problem, in my opinion, because it's their road and their buildings and their the ones that are going to live next to each other. Well, developer's going to put somebody in there to live. And, Miss Allard, that's her home. So she's been writing 27 on all of her mail. She's been receiving all of her mail from her friends at 27. That's part of her identity and her experience. I'm still writing 2017 on all my dates, so I can't even imagine what it's going to be like trying to remember every single time to change your address. I can't imagine what kind of mayhem will be involved. But it is my impression that there will be a cost to her to change her address on legal documents. And there's definitely a difficulty in getting her ID changed, not her birth certificate, her ID changed, credit card mailing, all that kind of stuff. It's an unnecessary hassle in my mind. I think we can do right by neighbors in this case. The people who are more immediately involved prefer the 25A and 27 model. And the numbering committee is doing its job too. They're making the perfect recommendation. But if we were going to follow every perfect recommendation, we'd all be using the metric system. So I think there's a little bit of wiggle room. And to speak to the much larger project ahead of us of renumbering the whole city, I want to take her advice and resign because I don't want to deal with every single person coming in and saying, no, this is my favorite number. But I do think that Miss Allard deserves to have her number. And there isn't enough of a compelling safety issue or argument in my mind to hold this any longer or send it back to committee, because for us, this is just 2 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, we'll meet. For her, this is every night. Am I going to get my number, or is somebody going to tell me what's going to be on my house?
Alderwoman Wilshire.
I too will not support re-referring. I went through this situation myself. I lived on Marshall Street. I lived on the odd side of the street with an even number. And my alderman came to me one day and said, we're changing the number of your house. Well, my father-in-law had built a house on a small lot in between two other houses, and he gave it an odd number or an even number. And it is quite an inconvenience. And if the best that can happen here is we've made two parties happy, I'm going to support the 25A.
Alderwoman Clee.
Yes, hi. After the election and prior to being sworn in, Mrs. Allard spoke to me right there in the gallery. And after seeing the anxiety and all the stress that she was going through, and knowing that they've all come to this agreement, I really believe that we should not be referring. We should make a decision tonight, let her have some peace of mind, and let her move on. And I agree with what Alderman Lopez said. The cost and anxiety of having to change all of her documents, licenses, and just writing it down. And the other day I wrote 2016, so you can tell where I'm coming from. So, but, I really do think we need to make a decision tonight and not re-refer this.
Alderman Dowd.
I was on the infrastructure committee the last board, and it came before us, and I thought that we had resolved this pretty well, and then got carried over, and the resolution came through that about the same way. That couple things. It's one thing to deal with local people addresses and stuff and changing addresses on magazines and stuff. But I will tell you from personal experience, when you start changing addresses with banks and the federal government, you're going to have to provide all kinds of data showing why the address changed. And to me, that's a pain. We have buildings in Nashua that have far more convoluted addressing on it than this. And the other thing is that the police and fire, if they don't have it already, I'm sure they will soon, when they get a call, they're going to have a map pop up on their computer, and it's going to say, that's where it is. And the other thing is, the mailboxes and the houses, if you have a good-sized number on it, why are you going to miss it? They're right next to one another. So I think that I don't want to re-refer it.
Alderman Judge. Alderman Judge.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I think this is the fourth meeting that we've had on 25A. We should give them 25A plus for putting up with all of this. So I would like to vote on this. Just get it over with.
Any further discussion of the motion to re-refer? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Opposed? Motion fails.
Wait a minute. Sorry.
Chairman, thank you.
Motion then
I
is,
got more votes than I thought I was going to get.
I think the chair,
16, oh my goodness.
It's still 2017, I mean.
we're back to the
to keep
motion
us in
to
line.
grant the petition in part. Everybody understands the motion?
Yes.
Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Nominations, appointments, and elections.
There are none.
Reports of committees. If there are no objections, the report of the Budget Review Committee will be of January 22nd, 2018, will be accepted and placed on file. If there are no objections, the report of the Infrastructure Committee of January 24th, 2018 will be accepted and placed on file. If there are no objections, the report of the Pennachuck Water Special Committee of January 29th, 2018 will be accepted and placed on file. If there are no objections, the report of the January 29th, 2018 Pennachuck Water Special Committee will be accepted and placed on file. If there are no objections, the report of the Personnel and Administrative Affairs Committee of February 5th, 2018 will be accepted and placed on file. And lastly, if there are no objections, the report of the February 6th, 2018 Planning and Economic Development Committee meeting will be accepted and placed on file. Written reports from liaisons. Alderman Jettie. Have we approved the Planning and Economic Development Committee? We meeting just of did Jan- unless you have an objection to them. Of January 16, did you? Of January 16th? Did we already? I don't know. We'll check on that for next meeting. Written reports from liaisons.
There are none.
Confirmation of the mayor's appointments.
Board of Assessors.
Alderwoman Karen.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to make a motion to confirm by voice vote the appointment of Daniel C. Hansberry, 20 Shelley Drive, Nashua, to the Board of Assessors for an indefinite term at the pleasure of the mayor.
Motion is to confirm by voice vote the appointment of Daniel C. Hansberry, 20 Shelley Drive, Nashua, to the Board of Assessors for an indefinite term at the pleasure of the mayor. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and Daniel C. Hansberry is appointed to the Board of Assessors for an indefinite term at the pleasure of the mayor. Mr. Hansberry, would you come up for the oath of office?
Faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon you as a member of the Board of Assessors of the City of Nashua, according to the best of your ability, agreeably to the Charter and regulations of the City of Nashua, and the Constitution and laws of the State of New Hampshire. So help me God.
Downtown Improvement Committee.
Alderwoman Wilshire.
I move to confirm by voice vote the appointment of Michael Buckley, 207 Main Street, Nashua, and Jill Gage, 226 Bartimus Trail, Nashua, to the Downtown Improvement Committee for terms to expire January 31st, 2021.
Motion is to confirm by voice vote the appointment of Michael Buckley, 207 Main Street, Nashua, and Jill Gage, 226 Bartimus Trail, Nashua, to the Downtown Improvement Committee for terms to expire January 31st, 2021. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and Michael Buckley and Jill Gage are appointed to the Downtown Improvement Committee for terms to expire January 31st, 2021. I don't believe either of them are here. They will be sworn in at a later date.
Hunt Memorial Board of Trustees.
Alderman Lopez.
I'd like to make a motion to confirm by voice vote the appointment of Tim Cummings, Director of Economic Development for the City of Nashua, to the Hunt Memorial Board of Trustees for a term to expire January 31st, 2023.
Motion is to confirm by voice vote the appointment of Tim Cummings, Director of Economic Development for the City of Nashua, to the Hunt Memorial Board of Trustees for a term to expire January 31st, 2023. Is there any discussion of that motion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion carries, and Tim Cummings is appointed to the Hunt Memorial Board of Trustees for a term to expire January 31st, 2023. Mr. Cummings?
Raise your right hand. You solemnly swear that you will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent upon you as a member of the Hunt Memorial Board of Trustees, to the best of your ability, agreeably to the rules and regulations of the city charter and the Constitution of the state of New Hampshire, so help you God.
Mine Falls Park Advisory Committee.
Alderwoman Kelly?
Mr. President, I'd like to move to confirm by voice vote the appointment of Stacy Vignault of 6 New Hampshire Avenue in Nashua to the Mine Falls Park Advisory Committee for a term to expire January 31st, 2021. Sorry.
Motion is to confirm by voice vote the appointment of Stacy Vigneault, 6 New Hampshire Avenue, Nashua, to the Mine Falls Park Advisory Committee for a term to expire January 31st, 2021. Any discussion? Alderman Lopez?
Just wish to be pedantic and point out that it says Mines Falls instead of Mine Falls.
Mine has it right in one place and wrong in the other. So. Further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and Stacy Vigneault is appointed to the Mine Falls Park Advisory Committee for a term to expire January 31st, 2021. Is Ms. Vigneault here? She will be sworn in at a later date. Unfinished business resolutions.
Second reading of Resolution 18-001, authorizing the mayor and city treasurer to issue bonds not to exceed the amount of $15,500,000 for the Performing Arts Center located at 201 Main Street.
Alderman Dowd.
I'd like to make a motion for final passage of R 18-001 by roll call.
Motion is for final passage of R 18-001 by roll call. Is there any discussion? Alderman Jettie.
I've said this at the previous committee meetings and at the public hearing, but I feel compelled to say it again, that I regret that I have to say that I'm going to be voting against this. And I explained before that when I was campaigning, I told and people asked me about the Performing Arts Center because it was on the ballot at the same time. Asked me how I felt. I told them that I was in favor of the Performing Arts Center in these resolutions that were before the board, before the voters at the election. But I also said that since the previous Board of Aldermen were unable to get the votes necessary to adopt this, but placed it on the ballot to give the voters a chance to express their opinion, I said that I would follow the vote of my ward, and my ward voted against this, and I feel that I gave my word that that's what I would do, and so I feel that that's what I have to do. I have to vote against it. I tried at the various committee meetings to present the questions and the concerns that people had expressed to me who were opposed to this. And I encouraged the Economic Development Director to take on these questions and concerns and answer them. And he brought the consultants back. We had a public hearing. The consultants spoke and I think addressed all of these questions and concerns. I think satisfactorily, but I was already in favor of this. And I hope that the people who had those concerns and questions have listened to the presentations, have looked at the reports that have been made available by the city, and have become convinced themselves that this will be a good thing for the city. But unfortunately, we can't go back and have another election. So I promised the voters of Ward 5 that I would vote in accordance with their vote. They voted against it, so that's why I am voting against it tonight.
Alderwoman Clee.
Yes, hi. I will be voting for the performing arts. Ward 3, my ward, did vote very favorably for the performing arts, and I will, although I had already gone in with this preconceived idea of that I do like the performing arts, I had many, many questions, and I drove many, many people crazy, including today. I visited a few people asking questions. I've gone all the way up to Manchester, and I spoke to Mr. Ramsey to get questions answered about fundraising and how it affects the community, and much what Mayor Donches had spoken to private. Are we robbing Peter to pay Paul kind of thing in the community? I'm convinced that we're not. I'm also going to make a very bold statement here, and I'm hoping that those in the downtown area that are supportive of this performing arts dig deep into their pocket for that $4 million. And I hope they will be in the forefront writing those checks. Thank you.
Alderman Gidge, did you have your hand up?
Yes, that young man who made that speech was very clear. He made a point. Thought it was very eloquent. I'm sorry he mentioned my name in it. But it's that type of energy. Please, come this way when it passes. And when is it good to spend $15 million? Never good. But if I remember, we were number one on Money Magazine, the first city to be number one. No other cities. We were also the last city to be number one, with no other cities before major cities took place. How much risk did everyone take to become number one? This is a $15 million, not a risk. We want to do it again. And I know it's hard for some, and it's a lot of money, but if I didn't think we could do it and make a success out of it, I wouldn't vote for it. But I am going to vote for it. Thank you.
Alderman Lopez.
I guess I'm spared with at least one dilemma here, because last time I voted for it and then I got reelected. So, I guess if I just leave everything the way it is, I'll continue to get reelected, whether or not I want to be. But what really gets me is the discussion that's been coming forth. I think has been extremely productive, because when you have people like Tyler, the younger speaker from earlier, who are coming out and getting involved in local issues and reading through all of the minutes and all the presentations that we are, that's a very good thing for the city, regardless of whether I agree with all of his positions. I think that's important, is that people are discussing downtown. People are engaging in conversation about economic development and the arts. So for what it's worth, I think this has been a very worthwhile exercise, because as my colleague pointed out, we should never spend $15 million without discussing it very, very, very thoroughly. I haven't heard any new arguments or concerns since the original presentation. I think a lot of it has been a lot of close study and exploration of discussions that were already had. There were some concerns raised today about a backroom deal that I know nothing of. So I can't necessarily have my vote be changed by the accusation. But I would certainly look forward to any kind of revelations or new information as it proposes. I think for the decision-making part, it just falls down to us as aldermen to say, what's the information that we have? We were entrusted to make a decision, and it's not going to be 100% popular. It's not going to be 100% hated. We need to do what's right for the city. I think downtown needs investment. I think this is an economic opportunity that has been demonstrated so with some statistics and as predictive a model as you can do. And I think it's time to do it. I think the energy is here. I think there's a lot of young people who are looking to see which way the wind is going to blow in Nashua, whether we're going to start being progressive and developing and moving forward. And I think a lot of businesses will follow their lead as well. So I'm hoping that this is the first step in many steps, not to spend $15 million repeatedly, but to start investing in a community that is able to bring in more revenue, bring in more energy, bring in more people. So I'm in support of it, and I look forward to seeing how it will unfold. And I promise to the taxpayers of Nashua, I will be attentive to how it unfolds and the process that's being used.
Alderwoman Wilshire.
Thank you. I enjoy performing arts. I go to Palace, I go to Boston, I go to New York City. I think it's time. You know, there are always going to be other things that need to be done in the city. I think we've taken pretty good care of our schools. And to Tyler's comment about Mount Pleasant and Elm Street, there are always going to be those projects, always. And once we're finished with all the schools, we have to start over again. So you can't keep pushing things off like the arts. This is something that the majority of voters who went out to vote said they wanted. So I'm going to support that. That's my vote tonight.
Any further discussion? Alderwoman Mosey Goda.
Yes, I too am going to support this, and as I stated during the campaign season, and I know at least once in this chamber, as I look around the city, we have many facilities for many different interests. We've invested in our parks. We've invested in Stello Stadium as well as Holman. We've got Conway with ice, and we even have ice in the winter in some of our parks. The other night I came by Roby Park and I was like, what's going on late at night with all these cars? Should I be calling the police? And then I realized people were out there playing hockey on the ice. And when I look at the one area of recreation and interests that we really haven't addressed, it seems to be the performing arts. And so I think that this is one of those areas that we have really not addressed in a while, and this is the time to go forward and do that. So I will be supporting this.
Further discussion? I think Alderwoman Kelly was next.
Thank you, Mr. President. I also will be voting in support of this. It's been an interesting go of it through campaigning. This really having it on the ballot I've had similar experiences as Jetty and Clea. I think we all had to kind of get up on board and hear all the conversations again. And I think that everybody was really good at making sure that we got that information, that presentation that was put together, making sure that the concerns that were coming to us were being addressed and yet again brought forward. So I think there were a lot of really good things that were said at that meeting. The gentleman that from the Palace Theater talked about the arts being an investment and not looking at it as something that, like our parks, it's not always going to be, it's not we're going to make a profit. So I think that those things have really come to light, and we have done our due diligence on the questions that came to us when we were campaigning and as new aldermen. So I know we'll continue to have that due diligence as well as we watch this project go through.
Alderman Tenza.
Thank you. And, I also wanted to thank Tyler Gouveia for coming tonight and speaking on this issue. I think he put forward a lot of the arguments that we've heard before from other people, but he was the one who came tonight, had the courage to present these at the what's going to be a final vote on this issue. And to echo what Alderwoman Wilshire said, there are always going to be reasons to say no. I think that the last board passed a bonding bill for the roads, which will take care of a lot of concerns in the future. Unfortunately, that's not something that can be done all at once. In the schools will be cared for, have been cared for, will continue to be cared for as well. When I'm not from Nashua, but when I was offered a job here, what I did is I called a lawyer that I knew from the town I grew up in, and I said, Franny, I got offered this job in Nashua. What do you think about me, about moving to New Hampshire and starting a practice up there? And I didn't know that this lawyer, who's pretty well known down in Worcester, he said, Nashua? Oh, I love Nashua. I go up there, I have lunch at Martha's. It's a great downtown. I sit there, and it's a great feel to it. And, that is what sold me on coming here, on taking the job. and, you know, starting my life and my family up here. And I think this Performing Arts Center is going to have the same effect on a lot of young people, a lot of young families. They're going to see a vibrant downtown. They're going to see a community that they want to be part of. I think it's an investment that the city is making in the city. But I think that if we want other people to invest money in the city as well, we need to take the lead and say we're willing to put the infrastructure, support the arts, support culture, and you know, want to attract other people, other businesses to Nashua. So I am supporting this project. I hope that once it passes, that it's a full community project, that everyone gets on board, and it's something that we can all do together and be proud of together.
Alderwoman Harriet Guthrie.
Yes, I too am going to support the Arts Center. And a lot has to be with that. What's come into this with me is 38 years as a resident here, 4 children and 10 grandchildren. And Tyler, I just hope that when this is all over tonight that you will come up and speak with me. I was really happy to see that we had an 18-year-old, 19-year-old come and give us his spill as to what he felt we should be doing. But for me, as a person that's lived in this town for 38 years, I see this as an investment. I see it as an improvement. I see it as jobs. I see it as an additional cultural venue. I can't see us losing, only winning as a city, as a whole. So I sat here, I listened, and I spoke with Webb when he was here. I think he answered all the questions that I needed answered at the time. So I'm going to go forward with this and vote for it.
Any further discussion? Alderwoman Karen.
Yes, thank you. As a longtime resident of the city of Nashua, and I said this before, I was not for this, but the city has had several opportunities to do this. This has been a long time coming. And if we don't do it now, when will we do it? We will always have repairs to our parks, to our buildings, to our streets. We have to think about that as a whole. And one of the reasons that I changed my mind was to listen to the presentations, and also that we put the stipulation in there that $4 million had to come from the private sector before we put nail to hammer to wood. So I think that's very important, and I have to agree with Alderman Klee that all these wonderful business people downtown, they will all be opening up their pocketbooks and writing a check, and I'm sure it will take less than 24 months to get that $4 million in the bank for us to move forward. And I think it's time, and I'm looking forward to it. So, and for me to flip my vote from no to yes, took a lot of talking and listening. So I will be voting in favor. Thank you.
Alderwoman Schmidt.
Thank you. When our governor was elected, he told us that he was going to go to 100 businesses throughout the country and ask them to come to New Hampshire. And he has done this. He has traveled around the country trying to help us build a stronger New Hampshire. The problem is only one company so far has decided to come here, and they decided to go to Portsmouth. So I took a look at Portsmouth. Yes, okay, they've got the ocean. It's a nice thing to have. But Nashua has really, really, really great things in it. It's got a terrific river. We've got an airport. We've got a downtown we can be very proud of. But we're missing something. And I was wondering if maybe it had something to do with the tax base. Portsmouth taxes on their property is remarkably lower than Nashua's. One of the things that Portsmouth has is lots of small businesses, and they have lots of small businesses because they have a young, educated workforce there. It's attractive to businesses. That's what you can find when you invest in things like an arts center. What happens is you drop the arts center into the center of the city, it creates a splash, but it also creates waves. And the waves that will follow it will be more small businesses, more mid-sized businesses, more people coming here. And I think it's a prosperity ladder that we're building at this point. And I am so excited to see this coming. I will vote for it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any further discussion? If not, will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Wilshire. Yes. Alderman Gidge.
Yes.
Alderman Harriet Gathright.
Yes.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes.
Alderman Clee.
Yes.
Alderman Laws.
Yes.
Alderman Lopez.
Yes.
Alderman Karen. Alderwoman Kelly. Alderman Jettie.
No.
Alderwoman Milizi Gola.
Yes.
Alderman Tenza.
Yes.
Alderman Schmidt.
Yes.
Alderman O'Brien.
Yes.
Alderman McCarthy.
Yes.
We have 14 yeas and 1 nay.
Motion carries and R 1801 is adopted.
Second reading of resolution 18-002, authorizing the purchase of land and buildings at 201 Main Street, map 81, lot 3, for the Performing Arts Center.
Alderwoman Melissa Golia.
Yes, I move for final passage of R 18002.
Motion is for final passage of R 18002. Discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and R 18002 is adopted.
Second reading of resolution 18-006, authorizing Pennachuck Corporation and Pennachuck East Utility, Inc. to enter into a long-term loan and fixed asset line of credit with Co-Bank and to refinance intercompany loans.
Alderwoman Wilshire.
Thank you. I move for final passage of Resolution 18-006.
Motion is for final passage of R 18006. Discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries and R 18006 is adopted. Unfinished business ordinances.
Second reading of ordinance 18-002, amending the order of business of the Board of Aldermen.
Alderwoman Karen.
Mr. President, I move for final passage of 0-18-002.
Motion is for final passage of 018-002. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries and 018-002 is adopted.
Second reading of resolution 18-003 regarding suspension of the Board of Aldermen's rules.
Alderwoman Wilshire.
Thank you. I move for final passage of ordinance 18-003.
Motion is for final passage of 018-003. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And motion carries and 018-003 is adopted.
Second reading of resolution 18-004 regarding acceptance of procedural motions without objection.
Alderman Dowd.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion for final passage of 018-004.
Motion is for final passage of 018-004. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries and 018-004 is adopted. New business resolutions.
First reading of resolution 18-007, authorizing the filing of applications and execution of grant agreements with the U.S. Department of Transportation for grants under the Urban Mass Transportation Act of 1964 as amended for fiscal years 2019 and 2020.
Additional sponsors, Alderman Dowd, Alderman Lopez, Alderwoman Karen, Alderwoman Melissa Golia, Alderman O'Brien, and Alderwoman Kelly. And R 18-007 will be assigned to the Human Affairs Committee.
First reading of resolution 18-008, approving the cost items of a collective bargaining agreement between the Nashua Board of Education and the Nashua Teachers Union Local 1044 AFT AFL-CIO from September 1, 2017 through August 31, 2021, and related transfers.
Additional sponsors, Alderwoman Wilshire, Alderwoman Harriet Gathright, Alderwoman Clee, Alderman Lopez, sorry about that, Alderwoman Kelly, Alderwoman Melissa Golia, Alderman Tenza, and Alderwoman Schmidt. And R 18-008 will be assigned to the Budget Review Committee.
First reading of resolution 18-009 relative to the transfer of city matching funds in the amount of $2,985 from Police Grant Activity FY 2018 Violence Against Women Grant Program into Police Grant Activity FY 2017 Violence Against Women Grant Program.
Additional sponsors, Alderwoman Wilshire, Alderwoman Harriet Gathright, Alderman Dowd, Alderwoman Clee, Alderman Laws, Alderman Lopez, Alderwoman Karen, Alderwoman Kelly, Alderwoman Melizzi Golia, Alderman Tenza, Alderwoman Schmidt, Alderman O'Brien, and I may as well join. R 1809 will be assigned to the Human Affairs Committee. New business ordinances.
First reading of ordinance 18-005, adding additional fire station signal locations.
Alderman Dowd, Alderwoman Clee, Alderman Laws, Alderman Lopez, Alderwoman Melizzi Golia. Any other sponsors? Alderwoman Wilshire, Alderman Gidge, and Alderwoman Harriet Gathright. And 018-005 will be assigned to the Committee on Infrastructure.
First reading of ordinance 18-006, expanding the tax increment finance development district under RSA 162K and NRO 295-11, established by ordinance 03-171 and replacing the tax increment financing development program and financing plan adopted by resolution 03-197 and resolution 04-158.
Additional sponsors, I would like to be added. Is there anybody else? Alderwoman Melizzi Golia. Alderwoman Melizzi Golia, you have a motion?
Yes, to accept the first reading of O-18-006, assign it to the Planning and Economic Development Committee and the Budget Review Committee, and that a public hearing be scheduled for Tuesday, March 6, 2018 at 7 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber.
Motion is to accept the first reading of 018-006, assign it to the Planning and Economic Development Committee and the Budget Review Committee, and that a public hearing be scheduled for Tuesday, March 6, 2018 at 7 p.m. in the Aldermanic Chamber. Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carries.
First reading of ordinance 18-007, prohibiting placing or blowing yard debris in the street.
Any additional sponsors? Alderwoman Clee, Alderman Lopez, Alderman O'Brien. And 018-007 will be assigned to the Committee on Infrastructure. Period for general public comment. No one has signed up. Remarks by members of the Board of Aldermen. I'll start on this side tonight. Alderwoman Wilshire.
I wanted to send my condolences to the family of David Tremack, who we lost last week. David was a terrific guy. We sorely missed.
Additional comments? Alderman Lopez.
I just wanted to comment that I became aware that yesterday 2 Latino members of our community, Hispanic members of our community, had a very unpleasant experience where somebody walked by and just made a comment to the effect of, "Let's build a wall." And I just want to remind the Nashua public that that's not our character, that's not our people. Nashua has always been a city of immigrants, of people coming together with differences to build things that are of importance, things that matter, the homes that we all live in, the community that we're part of. And I just found it to be a very unfortunate and unsettling situation. The 2 individuals involved happen to be very, very involved and active and have done a lot for our community, and they deserve to be recognized as more than just what they look like by a stranger.
Done, Alderman Lopez?
That's it.
Alderman Karen?
Thank you. I also would like to send our condolences to the Wayne Andrews family. Wayne Andrews was a longtime resident of Nashua, a classmate of mine, and he was also a dedicated firefighter for Nashua's Finest. And he will be sorely missed by the community. I know that Roland's on breakfast time will be missing him. Also, I know that the Board of Aldermen got a note today from the marketing director for the Nashua Senior Center concerning their annual fire infusion event. I know that Alderman McCarthy, Alderman O'Brien, and Alderman Melizzi Golia attend, And I found out before I came that there are 30 tickets left out of the 350 that we have. And that event takes place the first weekend, Wednesday in May. And hopefully some of you members will attend. It's a good time had by all. Thank you.
Comments, Alderwoman Moisakota?
Yes, just a reminder that next Wednesday, February 21st, is Empty Bowls at Nashua High South.
Alderman Jody?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't raise my hand
Sorry.
in time, but I'd like to convey condolences to the family of Victor Schultz. He was the husband of former Representative Joan Schultz, who died. He died this past Sunday. He was also at one time a candidate for ward alderman and a longtime worker at the polls at the Bicentennial School. And our condolences to his family.
Any further comments? Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you. I would like to echo the sentiments of Alderman Karen on the passing of retired firefighter Wayne Andrews. Those that didn't know Wayne, you missed a lot. Those that, if you're a young male and you got some bulk to you, you definitely know Wayne. Wayne ran a gym out the back of his house. He was instrumental to keep a lot of our youth together and doing the right thing, of pumping the iron and working hard. He was, in his own way, a community advocate and leader with the youth and everything. He was also one of the strongest people that I knew and represented the fire department quite well in competitions in New Zealand and everything else. So I wish him the best of luck in his voyage, and I'll see you soon in that big firehouse in the sky. So that's it, yeah.
I wanted to comment briefly about the street renumbering petition. And first, while I realize a lot of us are new here, we ought to try to get the committee work done at the committees if we can possibly do that. On the issue itself, I dealt with one of these in Ward 5 on Gendron Drive, where it was going to renumber 4 houses, and none of them were happy about it. And my former Ward 5 alderman had another one on Skyline Drive where I know that was the same case, and I think we've seen other ones around the ward. It is really tough to change street numbers. Last week at 7:30 in the morning, I got a phone call for Gerald McCarthy. Gerald is a guy who used to live in Milford, Mass. When I lived there. When I moved here in 1980, Gerald followed me for some reason. And Gerald's been dead for 5 or 10 years now, and he still is believed by many people around this country to live at my address, even though he never did. Once this stuff is out there, it sticks. You can't get rid of it. It's a very difficult thing. And as for the E911 project to clean it up, here's some food for thought. That's a great idea, and we can get it all fixed. Last year, in its infinite wisdom, the legislature passed the accessory dwelling unit legislation, which allows us essentially to convert each one of the about 12,000 to 14,000 single-family residents in Nashua to a duplex. If tonight was any sample of that, we're going to spend 6,000 hours in here debating street renumbering by the time the effect of that ripples through. So it's a great idea. I don't think there's a solution to it. I mean, when somebody has a dwelling unit, what do? Renumber the house so that the dwelling unit can be the earlier number if it's on the left side of the house, but not on the right. It's a problem, and I think, as somebody pointed out, the solution to it is we have GIS systems that point to an exact spot on the map where that is, and we're not going to solve it by renumbering streets. So I would encourage us not to go that way. I'm glad we passed the Performing Arts Center. I think it will. I think it's going to be great for Nashua in the long term. I look forward to us trying to get the endowment funded, and I hope everybody around the horseshoe will be as zealous as they'd like the rest of the community to be in donating. Committee announcements. Alderwoman Wilshire.
On March 2nd at 1 PM, we will have CDBG site visits for those applicants who have asked for funding from that program. So March 2nd, 1 PM, there will be a list of places that we'll be going to visit. So you're all welcome to join.
Alderwoman Mozegoli?
Alderwoman Wilshire, may I just add to that for new members?
Sure.
Those site visits they're a posted meeting, and you're all more than welcome to join us. So just for your information. Also, PEDC was scheduled for next Tuesday. It will be canceled, and our next meeting will be March 6th. Thank you.
Alderman O'Brien?
Thank you. Severe apologies to all you Valentines, but the Infrastructure Committee will be meeting tomorrow night. You could have your special Valentine blame me, but there is an important issue that's before us. So it's going to start at 7, and we're going to have a joint meeting with the PE.
Thank you.
Right. And so we expect to have our friends of that committee to join us. So again, my condolences to you Valentines, but good to see you there at tomorrow night's meeting.
And Alderman O'Brien told me he's bringing chocolate and roses, so.
Those wouldn't be my first choices, but any further business for the board? Is there a motion? Alderman Lopez?
I just wanted to make a quick announcement. 2 weeks for our next Board of Aldermen meeting, I won't be present. I'm traveling to Honduras, would be the change. I will try to call in, but last time I did it, it was pretty spotty, so I just wanted to advise everyone in advance.
Alderwoman Wilshire?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion is to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and we're adjourned at 9:05.